Now, there is evidence of past water on Mars. Okay. And your textbook will tell you there's no evidence of water on Mars. We'll get to that. There actually is. However, there is evidence, strong evidence, for a lot of water in Mars's history. So they think about 4 billion years ago, the atmosphere was actually a lot thicker and a lot warmer. And they found things that you can only find if there was running water. And so these are kind of pictures. The first one is a picture of kind of a braided floodplain. And then the next one, it looks like it's even a picture from Earth, where you can see a river right running through the center called a meandering river. Again, it can only happen if there's some sort of liquid. So they found channels in the southern highlands. Basically, they're dried up riverbeds, which is what these things are pictures of. And so they carried, or at least we think they carried, water from mountains to valleys. So this picture is from Mars, and it's actually quite exciting. It's called an outflow channel. And what happens here is you get a gush of water, and it floods. And then it stops, and then it floods again, and it stops, and it floods again. And there's a large volume of water. Where we find things that look like this now is at the base of ice caps, where during the summertime they melt and release a ton of water, and then during the wintertime they freeze and don't release anything. So they're actually estimating that on Mars, this outflow channel might have had 100 times more water than the Nile does today. And they also think that this structure here is about 3 billion years old. That's really impressive. So here's some other evidence that suggests there might have been water on Mars. This is from the Mars Global Surveyor. So the one kind of near the bottom, this is actually a beach, or what we think it to be a terraced beach. A beach on Mars. That's impressive. And then the other one is a delta, right? So think about the Mississippi Delta, same idea. Okay, so you can kind of see it looks somewhat triangular if you squint and tilt your head, and anyway, so that's why it's called a delta. It's supposed to look like a triangle. But these things are evidence that there had to have been water at some point. All right, so your textbook. Astronomers have no direct evidence for liquid water anywhere on the Martian surface today. This was page 179 from edition 7, which I think they're still trying to use, but you might have edition 8, so it might be on a slightly different page. But basically they're saying there's no direct evidence for liquid water anywhere today. However, there is, and these are kind of old. They're already a couple years old, right, from 2015. If you want to click one, it'll actually show you how there's evidence and why and where we think it is and what type of water it is. The CNN one actually does a better job, just in case you're prone to one or the other. The CNN one actually does do a better job. And if you do watch the CNN one, at the end, this is why I don't watch the news, at the end, the scientist guy tells the anchors about things we've learned so that we need to adapt when we live on Mars. And the one anchor is just like, oh, that's good to know. And the other anchor just has like this blank expression on her face. I'm like, he just told you we're going to live on Mars, and, well, that's good to know. No, that might be slightly more impressive than that. I'm just thinking, my opinion. All right, since we're kind of following the textbook for the tests, we'll kind of follow the textbook right now. Although I will, on the test, I won't say we don't have any direct evidence of water, because we do. So I won't do that. But what does the textbook say about where there might be water on Mars? And so we've got, the indirect evidence of the beaches and the rivers and the outflows and all that fun stuff. And they also think that there's a lot of water locked up in permafrost. Permafrost is a layer of ice right below the surface. And they think that there might be some water ice in the polar ice caps. Now, they do think the polar ice caps are carbon dioxide, but there might be some water in that, is what they're kind of hinting. Okay, well, where did they get the permafrost idea? Remember that's like the ice layer right below the surface? We have that here on Earth. It's basically ice that binds the soil particles together. And so they found a crater impact, right? Or what we think is a crater impact. It looks pretty reasonable to assume that. And you can see these splashes, right? You can see it's like someone just did a cannonball in a pool, and it froze like that. And so, well, in order to have splashes like that, you need to have some sort of water source. Maybe it was from permafrost, and that's where they're getting the idea from. This picture is from the 2002 Mars Odyssey. So they do think that the permafrost, I said it was ice crystals kind of holding the soil together. They think that it actually could be up to 50% of the soil. So half soil, half ice. So the polar ice caps. They do have polar ice caps on Mars. We know them. We've seen them. However, they think they're actually carbon dioxide, but there might be some water in it. And they have seen these polar ice caps grow and shrink depending on the season. Now, this is cool. The 2000 surveyor mission, whatever, have found frozen mudslides. So, right, think mudslide, and then it freezes as it's falling. And that's what you're looking at here in these pictures. That's really cool. But not only is that like awesome, you need to have mud for a mudslide. Mud has to have some form of liquid, so again, we're thinking water. So another evidence that Mars did have water at some point, and like I said, now we know it still does. All right, so where did it all go? Right, because even the evidence that we found that it actually does have water, it's seasonal and it's small. So where did all of this water go? 100 times the amount in the Nile. It doesn't just disappear. What happened to it? Right. Well, 4 billion years ago, there was running water. We think it froze, maybe turned into permafrost. And then we had some volcanic activity that melted the permafrost and created these rivers and outflow channels and whatnot. Then the volcanic activity stopped, so everything kind of froze again, and it's all in permafrost. We think there is so much permafrost on Mars that if you could melt it all, Mars would actually be covered 10 feet deep in water. The entire planet would be covered 10 feet deep in water. And that's where they think all the water is. It's just frozen.